Good morning. I'm Barry Bryson, and I thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. We're going to talk about Pontius Pilate today and tomorrow. We get a real clear picture of him. We get certain details from the Synoptic Gospels, and then we really get a picture of him in John's Gospel as well that deepens our understanding of him. The picture we get is consistent. We get the picture of a man who is, a public servant. I mean, he's a military man trying to do his job as well as he can, and he's world weary, and he's a human being who succumbs to pressure. We understand a little more about that pressure from external sources outside the Bible, and I want to talk a bit about that today. Pontius Pilate is the procurator of Judea. The Romans have been in charge of Palestine since 63 BC, and after Herod's death, his children were not allowed to rule Judea, and at some points they weren't allowed to rule really any of it. But they were not allowed to control Judea. The Romans did, and they set up their capital at Caesarea on the sea, Caesarea Maritime. But during festivals and important dates, the Roman governor had to be in Jerusalem, which was still the cultural and the religious center of Judaism. And so they had a fortress there, which was literally built onto the temple grounds. The larger temple grounds. It would have attached itself to the exterior wall, of which the Wailing Wall, which is still there, was a part. And it was a tower. It was called the Fortress of Antony, or Antony, after Anthony, of course. And that's where they had a garrison. And that garrison will feature prominently not only in the story of Jesus, but in the story of the Apostle Paul. Pilate, by all accounts, came to Palestine in the mid-20s to govern Judea. He's only been there a few years, if that many, when the incident with Jesus happens. We have to consider that Judaism is a legalized religion in the Roman Empire. The Romans protected certain ancient and indigenous religions, especially in their homelands, so that Jews all around the empire were allowed to practice Judaism and were not going to be persecuted for practicing it. And in the Jewish homeland, Romans were not allowed to violate the local religion. Therefore, it was illegal to bring a bust of Caesar or an image of Caesar into the city of Jerusalem, because the Romans worshipped Caesar as a god, and that made it a graven image, and that would have violated the space of Jerusalem. Pilate, when he entered Jerusalem for the first time, evidently did not bring an image, but he brought a standard, a little flag, that had Caesar's image on it, and the Jews went completely nuts about that, and things went from bad to worse. There were riots. There was crackdown. There were crackdowns in which Jewish people's due process were violated on a large scale, and so there was a long legal battle between Caiaphas and Pilate in Rome. What we know of Pilate is that for some reason, probably for crimes against the Jewish people, he was recalled to Rome in AD 37, and he died in AD 39. We're not sure exactly how, although some sources say that he was forced to commit suicide. What we see in the Gospels is a man concerned with due process, a man who's just trying to do his job among the people who are making it impossible for him to do that job. And so he's there. It's a very high-stress time during Passover, and then Jesus is brought to him, and the Jews want him executed, and he has not committed a crime worthy of the death penalty. It matters to Pilate that an innocent person, or at least a person who's not worthy of the death penalty, is going to be executed, and he tries to find ways to free Jesus. Luke tells us that he sends Jesus to Herod, Matthew tells us in Matthew chapter 27 that he tries to release Barabbas instead, and he brings Jesus before them after having him beaten within an inch of his life to see if that would satisfy them. And then he washes his hands of it and said, I'm not going to be responsible for this innocent man's blood. We're told even his wife had sent him a message saying she'd had a terrible dream about Jesus that day and not to have anything to do with this innocent man's demise. It makes you admire Pilate a bit in that a Jew would matter to him. This is not a citizen. This is someone who is a member of a conquered people, a criminal among those conquered people, at least to the people. And you know, you can look back at our own record among the native nations of this country or the Philippines or any number of places that we conquered in our empire, and would find people not treated so well as Pilate treated Jesus, although he did have him beaten and ultimately executed. He did make the effort, and the Bible tells us that, and that's meaningful, I think. But it was not enough, and it was certainly not enough to absolve Pilate of guilt. We're going to talk more about the biblical record, especially John's, when we're together next time. Thank you for joining me for 5 good minutes.